Hi guys, it's Gemma from Team Libra. March is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and to help spread information and awareness, I have a very special guest joining me today. Bridget Hustwaite is an endo warrior, Triple J legend, founder of @Endogram. Wow, what a woman. We're going to talk all about the debilitating condition that affects 1 in 10 bleeders. It's where the cells, similar to those that line the uterus, grow outside of it, resulting in severe pain, heavy and irregular periods. Bridget knows exactly what life with endo is like. So, Bridget, tell us about your endometriosis story.
So my endometriosis journey has been a long one. I first started experiencing painful periods when I was 15 years old. I first got my period when I was in high school, like the first week of year 7. And I was so excited and really felt like I was growing up, but that novelty kind of wore off over the next couple of years by the time I turned 15 because it just got really uncomfortable and painful and heavy and started to really affect, I guess, how I felt at school. And I was kind of observing, how my friends were dealing with their periods and they seemed to be going pretty fine with it. So I wasn't sure if it was something wrong with me or that I was, a weak or couldn't deal with it. And my mum was concerned too. So we decided that we would go to the doctor and talk about my period. And I was kind of just put on the pill and, sent on my way. There was no further conversation. There was no mention of endometriosis. But then over the years, I started experiencing other symptoms, which at the time I didn't even think to link to endo because again, I didn't know about it. I didn't know it existed. But I started having abdominal cramping and pain when passing bowel movements and emptying my bladder. And even when I became sexually active as well, that was extra painful. Like I knew it would be painful the first time, but that kind of carried through. So over the years I started experiencing all these other things and it wasn't until 2018 that I got my official diagnosis after having surgery. So from the moment I first went to a doctor when I was 15 to 2018 when I was 27, it was a solid 12 years to get my diagnosis. And throughout that time I also dealt with very different doctors, some who did believe my pain and would refer me to a gynecologist, but there were some moments when I just couldn't afford the consultation fee because it's quite expensive to see a specialist and I was working a pretty low income job. And then there was another doctor who I saw who I was recommended to, a female GP, and she flat out said to me that you don't have endometriosis, others have it worse than you. So it's been a ride.
Wow, what a journey. Everyone has their own favourite remedies to help ease their endometriosis symptoms. What have you found most effective on your hard days?
My most effective way of dealing with the pain from my endometriosis symptoms would be hands down heat relief. I feel like, when you hear people say you're like a crazy cat lady, I'm a crazy heat pack lady. I have a whole collection, all different shapes and sizes and colors, just like this cute little basket full of heat bags. And they're just my go-to. They provide so much comfort. Like heat is really good for soothing, muscle cramps and whatnot. And recently I've, stumbled across heat packs that have a Velcro strap and you can literally tie it around your waist and you don't have to worry about tucking it into your pants or whatever. So that's definitely my go-to, and a bathtub. And anyone with a chronic illness, anyone with endo will get this. It's like a prerequisite for me if I'm looking for a new house. There needs to be a bathtub, otherwise I can't live there. So it's very helpful in the lead up to my period because that's when I get the most pain and the cramping is so like throbbing and nauseating. But as soon as I just slip into a hot bath, it goes away and it's just peaceful and relaxing, and I think just brings this whole state of calm to my body, which is otherwise just kind of trying to protect me but like freaking out with its responses and muscles clenching and whatnot. So number 1 would definitely be heat relief.
What has been the most interesting or rewarding part of running your Endogram Instagram account?
Endogram's been overall like a super rewarding experience because I've been able to connect with so many people and I've made lifelong friends, people who I talk to every day, who just get, what I'm going through, and they've also taught me so much. about endometriosis, that's probably the most rewarding thing, just the amount of knowledge that I have gained from connecting with others and learning about their own experience and how endo affects them, and also where endo affects them. I think one of the biggest things before creating Endogram, I was under the impression that endometriosis was just, a bad period and was just kind of confined to your reproductive area. But the more people that I've spoken to, whether they're from, the Sunshine Coast or Perth or New Zealand, the UK, even America, I've learned that endometriosis can affect you all over. Like, it is a whole body disease, and it has been found in every major organ, which is so wild. It's such a big deal. And I've heard, from friends in America who have had endo in their diaphragm, and it affects their breathing, and they get real severe chest pain. So that's probably the biggest thing, just how much I've actually learnt about the disease. And I mentioned in my book, it's a pretty big call, but I've learnt more about this chronic condition through social media and through Endogram than my own personal interactions with medical professionals. And I mean, it's amazing on one hand, but it's also really concerning, like how much, or how little rather, medical professionals really do know about endometriosis.
That's incredible. Okay, tell us what your new book, How to Endo, is about and what led you to write it.
So I wrote How to Endo pretty much just as a book that I knew that I needed when I was 15 years old and experiencing painful periods for the first time, because I didn't know who to turn to or what to know, what to look out for, and where to get the correct information. So this book kind of came to be, I guess, mainly through Endogram and just that community that I built there. And then, me taking it upon myself to learn more about the condition. I've read so many different books on endometriosis, but a lot of them are just really medical and too technical. And, for the average Joe, for the average patient, it's really hard to understand that information and digest it. So I just felt there was a big gap between, books that gave you all this information and practical advice, and also books that came from a patient perspective and felt relatable and comfortable and fun to read. I think you have to try and make learning about something like endo as fun as possible. So that's what led me to creating How to Endo, and I'm really proud of it because it's a big collaborative effort. Like, it's not just me throughout the book. You hear about my experience, but I also talk to all my new endo mates who I've met online from all over the world who have shared their personal experiences. And I've also talked to a bunch of specialists, because the thing with endo is it's not just a thing that you go and get surgery and then you're suddenly fixed. Like, surgery can remove the disease, but you've also had symptoms building up over the years, and your body has created responses over the years that you kind of have to teach yourself to undo. So you'll hear from a pelvic physio, you'll hear from a dietitian, you'll even hear from a sexologist. We talk about psychology and mental health, because that's a really important thing for chronic illness. And yeah, overall, it's just something that I wanted to make fun. I feel like you read the book in my voice, like I'm just talking to you, because that's how it should be. Learning medical stuff can be really boring, if I'm being honest. So you kind of have to make it as vibrant and relatable as possible. So I hope How to Endo does that.
I can't wait to read it. Do you think awareness surrounding endometriosis has increased over the last few years? And what do you think still needs to change?
I do think awareness has really increased over the last few years. There's been so much momentum building, and I just look back to when I was searching for my diagnosis. There was no one in the media talking about endo, and I couldn't really find the info that I could find now. So it just seems to be, I guess, social media helps. People are kind of taking control of their own narrative and building their own platforms. We're seeing so many Instagram accounts like Endogram pop up with people sharing their story and things that they've learnt along the way. So it's really exciting, because I think it really helps normalize the conversation, and then more people, feel comfortable speaking about it, and then other people who are, watching from the sidelines or whatever, they can look on and they might be experiencing pain as well, but they may not have known what it could be leading to. So it helps them, go speak to a medical professional and ultimately could shorten their diagnosis duration. I think no one should have a 12-year path to getting a diagnosis like what I have. So I think there's definitely been more conversation, and we're starting to normalize even talking about periods, which is definitely a cause for concern. If you're having a painful period, you definitely should look into that. But in terms of what still needs to be done, we still do have a long way to go. I mean, in terms of the external support, the government's been great in rolling out the National Action Plan for Endometriosis that launched in 2018. But one of the biggest things that I've realised, and throughout the process of creating How to Endo and speaking with other people, is the lack of accessibility. Like, not everyone is getting the same access to the right treatment for endometriosis. And it really comes down to, your income and where you live. And I think that's a really sad thing, because it's a condition that's as common as asthma and diabetes, but people can't seem to get the same access to the right treatment. And the gold standard of dealing with endo is through this thing that we call excision surgery. So that's when you physically cut out the disease from the root, but not all gynecologists are trained to do this. And there's not that many specialists, especially in rural or regional areas. And it can depend on, what you get can depend on whether you go through public or private health. So moving forward, I think there definitely needs to be more investment in excision surgery training and awareness, just so more people can access that, because there is no known cause or cure for endo right now. And even though all the other research trying to, find out those things is really helpful, I think we also need to focus on what we can do now, like the best thing in terms of managing the condition and preventing it from, spreading or further embedding itself into our organs, and that's excision surgery. So moving forward, I just want to see everyone with endometriosis have the same access to excision surgery and, the right treatments. We should all be getting the same level of care because we deserve it.
What would you say to someone who has just received an endometriosis diagnosis?
The first thing I would say to someone who's just been diagnosed would be, congratulations, you finally have answers. It's a real bittersweet feeling. On one hand, it's just so validating to have answers and know that your pain that you've been experiencing is real and valid, and it's not just all in your head. From my personal experience, I was so stoked to be diagnosed, because I just knew that I could, move forward with the knowledge that I had this condition, and it just was really reassuring, because again, it took 12 years for me to get to that point. So it was just relief almost getting to the finish line. But then realizing that it wasn't actually a finishing line, and it's kind of like a marathon, because endometriosis is a chronic condition. So I think that's where the bitter of the bittersweet comes in, because you do have to start thinking about how you can move forward and navigate your life and still live a fulfilling life, because you deserve to. Just figuring out ways that you can still do the things that you want to do and not let endometriosis, hold you back. So upon your diagnosis and upon resting, I would totally recommend just utilizing the resources that are available to you. We're really lucky in Australia that we have numerous endometriosis organisations like Endo, Endoactive, Endometriosis Australia, even the Pelvic Pain Foundation of Australia are really great, and they all provide resources that are free, to access. They have support groups that you can join online, and some of them even organise in-person catch-up, so you can connect with others and build a special support network. So that would be a thing that I would highly recommend, is just making the most of these organisations and what they can provide to you, because they are here to support you. And then from that, you can kind of figure out what else you need to do. If you need to speak to a dietitian about altering your diet, or if you do need to see a pelvic physio. The thing with endo is that it is a whole body condition with, whole body effects. So you kind of need to look at it from a multidisciplinary perspective and not just, surgery as the be all end all. You have to look at other ways to make life easier for you.
That's some great advice. Lastly, do you have a current book, podcast, or show obsession that you could recommend?
So I have just recently jumped on board the Dolly Alderton train. I had no idea who she was. If you don't know who she is either, she's pretty much just like this real big UK public figure. She's a broadcaster, she did a really successful podcast, and she's a journalist and now an author. And she recently dropped her debut fiction novel, which is called Ghosts. And I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but I think if you are a female in the dating world, or even if you're in a relationship, actually, this book really is for everyone. You will just find yourself so invested in the storyline. The way that she describes her characters is so not only visual, but it's easy to understand and easy to follow along. And I have a pretty short attention span, but she really had me from start to finish, and I'm still raging as to how the book ended. But now I'm reading her memoir, which she dropped a few years ago, which is called Everything I Know About Love. And I find it really relatable because, I'm about to turn 30 and she's a couple of years older than me. And it just feels like I'm reading from a big sister who has lived the same experiences as me, from, being in high school and the thrill of logging onto MSN Messenger and talking to boys, and then kind of entering the dating world, in your late 20s and just navigating life. So it's super relatable and heartwarming and just something that I found a lot of comfort in. So I would highly recommend checking out Dolly Alderton.
Thanks for sharing. That's it for today. I hope you now have a greater insight into what living with endometriosis is like. The more we discuss endo, the closer we are to understanding this often misunderstood condition. Bridget, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I hope people got something out of this, and if you're going through an endo diagnosis or you've already been diagnosed and you're feeling a little bit lost in it all, because it really is a chaotic thing to be dealing with, I hope this has brought you comfort, and just know that you're not alone, and there's so many wonderful resources and support networks out there, and you can catch me at Endogram. And I hope you enjoy the book, How to Endo.
Remember, if you have any questions, send us a DM or reach out to me via libragirl.com. See you next time.